When I am doing my weft installation, I like the hair to be wet so there's not a lot of flyaway hairs in this process. It makes it faster and smoother, and it keeps the hair more intact. So when we're adding the beads, that they do not have a hard time going in through this application process. So I start by leaving the left and right corners out. So if they were to wear their hair up, they're not going to be seeing the beads. Then I move into the next section about a half of a centimeter in size. I'm taking my rat tail comb, and you see I'm picking up little pieces. Here we go. Get a better view here with the bead. Again, we left that left side out, which is a finger's space away. I will continue picking up about the same size as we move from the left to the right side, where we're going to be sewing our weft onto. These little beads, we're going to be needing our pliers to push the bead together to hold the hair down. We're also going to be needing our bead holder and applicator, which is what we're using right here. And you can see we've loaded it up with the beads. It has a little hole inside so the hair can wrap through, and then we push the bead up. We want to hold it very taut and flat to the scalp. Now what I'm doing right here is just making sure there's no flyaway hairs before I get my pliers and scrunch my bead down. These beads are very flat to the scalp. When the hair is wet, the application process is not only smoother, but it's also faster. As you can see, I don't need a ton of clips holding it away for my application process. I'm able to comb and brush the hair out of the way, clip it up, and get it out of the way. I'm going to be very consistent with every section I take to be the same. I'm constantly feeling and touching to make sure the bead isn't sticking out in any way. I'm going to continue adding the beads until I run out of hair, mindfully leaving the fingers with on the edges free from the beads. Because I've pre-sectioned out the hair, you can't see exactly where I've created this, but it's right below the occipital bone. I don't want it to be too close to the bottom of the neck. I want to be about mid-level, and we're adding length, and we're going to be doing 2 rows on this client. So this is the first row that we are working with. I like to keep all of my tools very handy so it can make the process very quick. Now, for video purposes, the beads are a little bit lighter, and I'm going to be using a lighter string when I do sew my weft on, but I would typically use a darker bead and a darker string to make sure that it does not show through if the hair breaks apart. We want to make it look as natural as possible. Now that we've finished up applying our beads, we're going to be taking our weft and we're going to be laying it on top of the bead. So make sure you have a lot of clips nearby. And I like to pre-sew, as you can see this stitch here in the corner, the needle and thread onto the weft before I even begin my application. This is going to make it a lot easier and faster. There's no need to try to stitch on the string while it's on, gently clipped on the head. We want to make sure we execute very quickly. Now I am pinning down the weft of hair right below the beads where I'm going to be sewing. And this is going to make sure everything stays intact for this process. I don't want it moving around, and I don't want things getting too wobbly. So I'm just securing the weft onto the wet hair. Now, as you can see, the string is from the left side here, and it's already connected. I did 3 stitches onto the weft. Now, these corners are very important to this application. We want to make sure they stay very strong. So every little pocket is where we have the bead. So I'm going to be scooping through the pocket in my first attempt to get the side of the weft in tight and strong. So first I weave the string through the pocket and into the actual weft on the sewn in part from the left into the right. And then from the center, I'm going to dig back through the pocket back into the left side. And I'm going to make sure I have a really strong first knot with the weft on the pocket. We really don't want these corners coming up. I find when it comes to wearing a weft extension, these corners need to be nailed down very tight and flat to the scalp. So I do a couple extra stitches in the very first pocket before I get sewing through the rest of the weft. Once I've got the corner nailed down, I'm going to be working and knotting left and right of every pocket. This is going to ensure that the weft stays close to the scalp and is strong, and in 8 weeks it'll still be intact. We double the string, so it's a doubled string to support it, so that if something was to break, that it's not going to unravel the entire weft. And if you know how to cross stitch, if you've ever sewn, you're going to be working across the entire weft here. I go from the left of the pocket to the right of the pocket and then into the next pocket. Now every pocket is where every bead is created a pocket. So we're going to the left side of the bead and to the right side of the bead. And then we're going to move on to the next beaded pocket. Now, as you can see, I'm using a white string, but if you are using this on your client, I would recommend doing something darker so you cannot see it. Our clients don't want to see these strings. They don't want anybody to know they've got extensions, usually. And we're just going to be working across the entire weft until we get to the right side of the weft. Now, as you can see, I'm being very delicate, and the needle hook is like a half circle, so it's easy to thread through. As you can see here, I'm keeping a very clean application. I'm trying not to move the weft around, keeping everything just where I had laid it down, being very delicate. The weft is great for many clients. It doesn't bother the scalp usually. There's no adhesives. It's just sewn into the scalp. We do not recommend high ponytails when you wear a weft hair extension because obviously we don't want to be moving those beads. We want to have them lay flat as possible. Now, as we approach the other corner pocket, we want to make sure we do just as we did when we started, to make sure that it is very secure to the scalp, and that if the client blow dries their hair or pulls too hard, that it does not undo the sides. This is where we do the knotting into the pocket from both the left corner, and then we end on the right corner. And we're going to approach it the same as we had been when we started. So the very first and the very last pocket, we're going to sew the hair through the pocket in both directions and create a very flat knot to make sure that it is secure. And then we're going to actually puncture the weft at the very end when we knot it. We are not puncturing the weft between the first and the last pocket. We're just sewing the weft itself, but we are actually going to puncture the weft, the hand tied sewn weft itself, with a knot at the very end to make sure that the knot is inside the weft. When we're done with this section, we're going to be gauging where we put our next weft, and we're going to move above the occipital bone for this last one. We want to make sure we get a very straight and smooth section. Again, the hair is soaking wet. I love doing the application on a wet hair. I highly recommend this for the best application. I know the first couple of days it can feel a little tight on our client's head, so I try to prepare them to let them know it's very temporary if it is a little tight, but it has the most longevity, and sometimes that's just what we have to do in order to get a really good stitch in. Just being extra meticulous on this sectioning to make sure we get it just absolutely perfect. Now this section, when I start to put the beads in, I'm going to start from the center. I'm not allowing for as much of the hairline to hide the beads. So I want to make sure I center my weft from the center of the scalp. Again, I'm just measuring, making sure everything is exactly the size that we want it. And we do cut the wefts. This is a reinstallation, so on this one, they're already pre-cut and we know exactly where we want them. But if this was a fresh pack of hair, we would have to actually cut the hair into the section that we're looking for and measure it. All right, I'm looking, I'm assessing. It's looking good. Doing one last go. I'm like, yep, section looks great. And then we'll start putting our beads in for our last row. As you can see, I'm starting from the center as I had stated. I'm holding my bead holder in one hand, my comb in the other. Pulling the bead through, making sure it's taut, there's no loose hairs, and then I am securing it with the bead. Make sure each of these sections are consistent. We don't want to have too little hair, and if there's too much hair, the bead won't fit, and every now and then I get a little too much hair and the bead just can't squeeze in, so I have to redo it and just takes more time. So just try to be as consistent as possible. This is definitely a recommended application process. Now, assessing every client's needs and lifestyle depends on if you're going to do the tape-in method or the sewn-in beaded method. Sustainability-wise, we are able to reuse this hair many more times than the pre-adhesive tape, because those ones have a lifeline with the tape and sometimes it gets a little junked up, and so we can only use them 2 to 3 times. wear a sew and weft. A lot of my clients will be wearing these for the next year to year and a half, especially if they take good care and use good products. It is real hair, so what you do to it, just like anything else, if you use a lot of heat and a lot of damage, it will definitely make the ends more, split ends and heat damage much faster than if you're a little bit more delicate with the hair. So you'll get out of it what you put into it, and using good products always helps to maintain moisture and having really pretty hair. Now, the wefts are also great because you can color them because they are human hair. Here we are, we're just moving along here, adding our beads in and being consistent, not to take too much hair. We're continuing our beads on the right side since we finished the left, and we're going to continue the process until we get exactly to the end. This could be a little tedious. Take your time. This is a very crucial part of the application process. Now, when it comes to choosing the hair, this is a double drawn weft. It's a little thicker, so it might sag down a tiny bit where the beads are. There are many different type of sewn in wefts. Now, when I say that, I mean the actual weft of hair itself. There's many to choose from. Every company has a different style. This one we're using the double-sided one, which is a little thicker and heavier, which is great for long hair to give you that fullness. Some of the finer hand-tied wefts, it's preference to the client and the look that you're going for and the company hair that you're using. There's so many different price points. Find what works best for you. Always do a consultation first. If you buy something online and it's the wrong color, you can always tone it to make it match. I always recommend toning the hair after you've installed it so you can tone all of the hair together. The one perk about doing the sewn-in weft is that it's very comfortable to wear, and for somebody who might be scalp sensitivities, it just feels really good and it's not as itchy. One reminder is, yes, we're putting this in wet hair, but we will dry the hair when we're done. We always want to recommend to our clients that the hair that we are, we put the hair in. So if they're wearing extensions, they need to blow dry the hair and never go to bed with wet hair extensions. This could cause molding and fungus growing, and it's really important that we communicate this to our clients that the hair needs to be blow dried all the way every time after it's been washed. Other than that, we're going to treat it as if it's our own hair, and we're going to use good products. We can use good leave-in products and, styling products, heat protectants. Nothing is going to change. We're going to be doing the same thing, but we're going to be also gentle when we brush from the scalp area, not to brush the weft from the scalp. Always hold it down with your hand, brush from the bottom up to detangle. We do recommend using a very soft type brush. My favorite is the Ergo Super Gentle Brush. It's amazing. And I always recommend to all my clients who wear extensions to brush your hair at least 3 times a day. You don't want it to get all snaggly and tangled and cause other issues. So keep it clean and keep it brushed. Again, we are getting to the part where we add the weft in. We've already put in the beads. We're prepping it. We're putting our clips down. We're securing it down. Our weft already has the string with the needle ready to go. The best way to gauge how much string to use is to do about 3 feet wide, which is like a full length of your arms out times 2, because we're going to double it. We want to make sure the string is really strong. So I never recommend using a single string. I always recommend doubling it, and thread, string, whatever you want to call it. There are different types. There's nylon, there's cotton. You'll find all the different types if you search online. Find what works best for you. And I always say keep it consistent. Again, I had the string already on the needle, and I had already had it pushed through the weft. So I did 3 in the weft sewn part, so it's really strong. And then I go into the pocket from the side and to the top. So I go from both directions, and I go back into the weft itself before I start sewing through the weft, where then I'm just going around the weft as I go from left side of the pocket to the right side, for everything in between the first and the last pocket. I'm not putting the needle through the bead. I'm not putting the needle through the weft, besides only the first and the last pocket. We want this to be comfortable, and we're going to be able to do a move up in between on our client, which is really awesome. We don't have to take the string out every single time. We can just literally flip up the weft and push the bead up. That will be a different video. You will not see that here. But this is why we do not string through the bead. But again, we are going to put the needle in the string on both sides of the bead in the pocket. So we go to the left and we go to the right, and then we hop to the next pocket. Left, right, next pocket. Left, right, next pocket. This is going to make it very comfortable and easy to move it back up. It's not going to have any pulling in the back of the head. The only tightness will be on the sides where we secured the weft with the knots. And our clients really enjoy how comfortable this process is. As we're coming to the end of the last pocket, again, this is where we want to secure the weft down. We want to secure the left and the right side where we're actually knotting the needle and thread into the weft to make sure it is not get loose, does not come undone, doesn't break. So my method is the last pocket, we do the left and the right, and we go back in from under the pocket in the right corner into the weft where it is sewn together. And then we're going to go from the top back to the right corner and around back into the weft, where we will then continue to knot it 3 times. This will secure your weft, and your client will love the result because it feels really good on those edges. You want to make sure that they're very flat to the scalp. If they are flapping out, you did not do it correctly, and your client will feel it and it'll be very uncomfortable and it might stick out, and everybody wants it to look as natural as possible.